Now look, I want to get something straight right from the beginning, because the internet has been absolutely wild with this stuff. People are running around saying that the scientists at CERN have torn open a hole in space, or that they have conjured up some enormous black hole that is going to swallow Switzerland, or that they have punched a doorway into some parallel dimension where a version of you is eating a different sandwich. And I have to tell you, with the greatest possible affection for the curious human mind, that this is complete and utter nonsense. It is the kind of nonsense that sounds exciting precisely because it has nothing to do with what is actually happening. And what is actually happening is, in a very deep and genuine sense, far more disturbing than any of that science fiction stuff. The real situation, the one that has serious physicists pacing around their offices and staring at numbers on whiteboards with that particular look of a person who has just been told that arithmetic does not work anymore, is something far more unsettling. Nature is breaking our rules, not dramatically, not with an explosion or a flash of light. She is doing it quietly, precisely, and with what feels almost like a kind of deliberate stubbornness. Let me give you a picture of what is going on, because the abstract language of physics can make people feel like they are not allowed into the conversation. You are allowed in. Here is an analogy I want you to sit with. Imagine that somewhere in the world there exists the most complicated mechanical watch ever constructed. It has thousands of tiny gears, springs, escapements, and wheels, all working together in ways that produce behavior on its face that seems almost magical. But here is the problem. The watch is sealed inside a perfectly smooth metal sphere, and nobody has a key. Nobody has ever had a key. The case cannot be drilled, cannot be cut, cannot be opened by any means available to you. You cannot see the mechanism, you cannot touch it, you can only observe what the watch does from the outside. Now, how do you figure out what is inside if you cannot look inside? Well, here is what you do. You take two of these sealed watches and you fire them at each other at nearly the speed of light, and you watch very, very carefully what flies out of the collision. Gears come flying out. Springs come springing out. Little jeweled bearings go shooting off in every direction. And if you measure everything carefully, the mass of each piece, the direction it travels, the speed it carries, you can start to reconstruct the internal logic of the machine. You can build a picture of what was inside from the wreckage of what comes out. And for a very long time, for something like 50 years, this method worked beautifully. The pieces that came flying out of those collisions followed rules, precise rules, rules that physicists encoded into a magnificent piece of mathematics called the Standard Model. This model told you, with extraordinary precision, exactly what pieces would come out and exactly how they would behave when you smash those watches together at higher and higher energies. It was one of the most successful predictive frameworks in the history of human thought. You plug in your energy, you crank the mathematics, and out comes a prediction that matches the experiment to 10 or 12 decimal places. It felt like we had cracked the watch. Not opened it, but cracked the secret of what was inside it. But something has changed. The Large Hadron Collider, which is the most powerful watch-smashing machine ever built, a 17-mile ring buried under the French and Swiss countryside where particles are accelerated to within a tiny fraction of the speed of light before being steered into each other with incredible precision, has started producing collisions where the pieces do not come out the way the mathematics says they should. Not wildly wrong, not explosively wrong, but wrong in a way that is very, very hard to dismiss. A piece comes flying out that carries the wrong amount of energy. A gear spins in a direction that the equations say is forbidden. A spring lands in a place that the model says has a probability of essentially zero. And here's the thing about physics. When the experiment disagrees with the theory is wrong. Not maybe wrong, not probably wrong, simply wrong. That is the deal you make when you do science. You write down a beautiful set of equations, and if nature says no, then your beautiful equations are just beautiful wrong equations, and you have to throw them out or fix them. There is no negotiation. There is no appeal to elegance. There is no committee that can vote the discrepancy away. So let me walk you through what the actual experimental findings are, because I want you to understand why this is not a trivial technical problem. This is a genuine crisis at the foundation of how we understand matter. The first issue has to do with what I would call the failure of the mathematical accounting. Physics has these things called conservation laws, and they are not suggestions. They are more like the ledger sheets of the universe. When particles collide and produce new particles, the total energy before the collision must equal the total energy after the collision, minus any that gets carried away by things you can detect. The total momentum going in must come back out. The total electrical charge going in must come back out. These are not approximate rules. They are absolute. They have never, in the entire history of experimental particle physics, been violated. Not once. But the data coming out of certain high-energy collision events at the LHC is showing something troubling. When physicists add up the ledger, when they account for every particle that was detected and every bit of energy and momentum those particles carried, the books do not balance. There is a deficit, or sometimes a surplus, and the amount is not random noise. It is systematic. It shows up repeatedly, at similar energies, in similar types of collisions, and it has a structure that looks like a signature rather than an accident. Something is carrying away energy that the detectors cannot detect. Something is interacting with the ordinary matter in the collision and walking away unaccounted for. This is the invisible engine inside the watch. The hidden mechanism that we never put in our equations because we did not know it was there. Now you might say, well, we already know there are things that are hard to detect. Neutrinos, for instance, are famously difficult to catch. They pass through matter like it is not there. Could this just be neutrinos doing something unusual? And the answer is no, this is not standard neutrino behavior. The physicists who do this work for a living have already accounted for the neutrino contribution. They know what neutrino signatures look like in their detectors. What they are seeing has a different character. It points not to a known particle behaving unexpectedly, but to something that does not fit anywhere in the standard model at all. Something entirely outside the catalog we have spent 50 years building. The second issue is stranger still, and it goes by the name of the flavor anomaly. Now I need to explain what flavor means in this context, because it is not like ice cream flavors. In particle physics, flavor is the word used to describe the different types of particles within a family. Electrons, muons, and tau particles are all members of a family called leptons. They are, in a deep sense, copies of each other. They carry the same electrical charge. They interact via the same fundamental forces. The only thing that distinguishes them is their mass. An electron is light. A muon is about 200 times heavier. A tau is heavier still. But other than this difference in mass, the forces of nature are supposed to treat them identically. This principle has a formal name. It is called lepton universality. Lepton universality is not just an assumption. It is a prediction that emerges from the deep mathematical structure of the Standard Model. The equations that describe how the weak nuclear force and the electromagnetic force operate do not have any mechanism for telling the difference between an electron and a muon. So if you have a process that can produce either one, it should produce them with equal probability after you correct for the small effects that arise from the mass difference. The universe should be flavor blind, except it is not. The LHC has been studying the decay of particles called beauty quarks, or B quarks, which are heavy and unstable and decay into lighter particles very quickly. When a beauty quark decays, it can produce either an electron or a muon, and the Standard Model tells you, with precision, what the ratio of electrons to muons should be. It should be very close to 1:1, and for a long time, it was. But the measurements coming out of the LHCb detector, which is specifically designed to study these kinds of decays, have been showing a ratio that is not 1:1. It is consistently, stubbornly, reproducibly different. The beauty quarks are preferring to decay into muons over electrons at a rate that the Standard Model cannot explain. And I want you to appreciate why this is such a profound thing. This is not a measurement of some obscure high-energy process that requires exotic conditions. This is a measurement of a ratio, a simple comparison of how often one thing happens versus another thing, and the answer is wrong. By a statistical significance that physicists now describe as being well beyond the threshold where they would typically begin to take a discrepancy seriously, the number keeps getting more wrong as more data comes in. It is not converging toward the prediction, it is diverging from it. This tells us something fundamental. It tells us that whatever is causing this asymmetry must be something that distinguishes between electrons and muons in a way that our current theory says is impossible. There must be a new force, or a new particle, or a new interaction, something we have never measured and never imagined, that couples differently to different generations of leptons. The flavor blindness of nature is an illusion. Underneath the surface, there is machinery that sees flavor and responds to it, and we have no idea what that machinery looks like. Now, there is a third truth I want to confront, and it is a philosophical one, because I think it gets to the heart of why this kind of discovery is so unsettling to so many physicists. Over the decades, theoretical physicists have developed an aesthetic, a taste for beauty, and the Standard Model, whatever its limitations, is genuinely beautiful. Its equations have a symmetry to them, a completeness, a kind of satisfying closure that makes it feel like a finished picture. Physicists have become attached to this beauty. They have built careers on exploring its implications. They have developed an intuition that beautiful mathematics is probably right, and that if an experiment produces an ugly result, maybe something went wrong with the experiment. This is the bias I want to name, because naming it is the first step toward correcting it. The universe has no obligation to be beautiful in the way that we find beauty. The universe is not writing equations for us to admire. It is doing what it does, and our job is to figure out what that is, not to insist that it conforms to our preferences. When Feynman said that nature cannot be fooled, he meant precisely this. You can fool a funding committee, you can fool a journal reviewer, you can even fool yourself for a while. But you cannot fool the experiment. The experiment is a direct conversation with the universe, and if the universe is telling you that your pretty equations are wrong, then your pretty equations are wrong, and the only honorable response is to accept that and get to work on new ones. What is genuinely exciting, and I mean this with full sincerity, is that these anomalies, these places where the Standard Model breaks down, are not catastrophes. They are invitations. Every time in the history of physics that an experiment has defied the established theory, what came next was not the collapse of knowledge. What came next was a deeper layer of understanding that made the previous theory look like a simplified version of something richer and more surprising. Classical mechanics was not wrong. It was a limited case of quantum mechanics. Newtonian gravity was not wrong. It was a limited case of general relativity. The Standard Model is not wrong in the sense of being useless. It is wrong in the sense of being incomplete, and the incompleteness is now showing its edges at the energies that the LHC can reach. There are particles out there that our equations have no room for. There are forces operating in the subatomic world that we have never measured and cannot yet describe. The machinery inside the sealed watch is stranger and more elaborate than our 50 years of careful observation had suggested, and the people who are going to figure out what that machinery looks like are not the ones who are frightened by the anomalies. They are the ones who are most excited by them. Because a number that does not match the prediction is not a failure. It is the most important number in the room. It is the number that is pointing directly at the next discovery. Nature is always more clever than we are. That is not a reason for despair. That is the whole reason the work is worth doing.